thank you all for coming. This event was put on for you, and it was actually Mrs. Lynn's idea who kind of sparked my creativity to create this event. So um, we're calling this a parent inclusion panel, and mainly because I know a lot of you are interested in going into education, and a big part of being an educator is you're going to have children, no matter whether you decide to work in special education or not. You're probably going to have children in your classrooms or that have a disability. And so all of these parents are wonderful. I've had a chance to be a part of all of their lives at some point. And so I know they're going to share some really awesome things, like things that have helped their child and them as a family feel included in their school. And that's kind of what we're sharing. And you guys had some great questions that Mrs. Alt shared with me. So I will introduce real quick, but we'll get a reintroduction and then get to speak. So we have Rick and Mary Claiborne, and Karen Nicole, Sarah Meitner, Jean and Hal Rogers, and Natalie and Matt Bender. So you'll get to see a little picture of their family or their child when they get a chance to speak. And so my one other little thing, when I was looking for a quote to share with you guys, this happened in Mrs. Dinkel's room just last week. I always try to think of something inspiring that I want to say. And this was something that's going to stick with me now forever when I think about something that makes me passionate about what I do. And I was doing a gratitude lesson with Mrs. Dinkel's students, and one of the students stopped me, and the speaker stopped. He said, I just felt a bolt of electric excitement shoot through my heart. Because he was having, fun with the lesson. And so just things like that, this is the thing that drives, even though sometimes as an educator, seeing things can feel overwhelming and tough, these are moments that I get still give me children when I say it, because all of their children I've got to work with from maybe I didn't get to work with Angie for a little bit. The majority of them I've seen since they were little. So I've seen big growth, and I'm going to turn it over to our families now. And we'll have Hal and Jane talk about their daughter Angie. Hello everybody, thanks for coming today. Our daughter Angie is 40 years old, hard to believe. She, when she was born, we had no idea she had a disability. We didn't really know she had a disability until she was probably about 9 months of age, but we didn't have a diagnosis until she was 4. So it was kind of trying to figure out what it was until we were process of having a child with disability, but we didn't know what anything else about. And we included her just as you would have been a toddler. We included her just without knowing her, she was included. And I think one of our favorite stories, we had a little friend named Bo, and when Angie and Bo were the same age, they were 4, she was real tiny, and he was an average sized child, and they were together a lot. And to me it was really neat, because one day he said, how old is Angie? And I said, she's 4. And he says, and you can see the wheels turning. He said, I'm 4. And I'm a lot bigger than she is. See, he was questioning, but he didn't know that. And he kind of stood back and he said, well, I guess she's just a little 4. And it was just so special that this little guy was doing inclusion without even knowing it. And our whole lives have been sort of like that. We've always included each other. All of our sons, her brothers, games, we loved her everywhere. She was always included in our lives as much as she could be. Her disability, I should tell you, is that she has Rett syndrome, and she's real smart. How can go into that? So good at explaining. She's very smart, but she needs all of physical care. She does walk with assistance, can't run walk by herself. So she needs 24-hour care as far as bathing, all of the dressing, everything. She does have an amazing computer that she uses, and it's called the Toby Eye Gaze. She uses her eyes to communicate, and that's really been wonderful. But we didn't have it while
we just kind of floundered really in school, not knowing, what she was really capable of doing. But we knew in our heart, that she was smart because her eyes, you can tell she has the eyes that can stare a whole lot through, really. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, she operates the computer with her eye gaze. If you imagine a screen with ordered off, you put as many boxes in as you want to. And then those boxes are loaded with responses that she might like to use, like how are you, and everything. And then they're paged according to greetings, food, those are a lot. Um, anyway, so it's calibrated to her eye gaze. She'll look at, she knows where all these things are. And she'll look at a box, and she has to dwell on that box for a certain amount of time. I think it's what, 0.7 seconds. And if she looks at that long, that box is going to speak. And it's pretty amazing that she's really smart. We didn't know she was that smart. We always knew she was smart. We didn't know that she could actually do that. And it was really good.
So I just wanted to also include how we have included her in her life. When she first was in kindergarten here, we moved here, and Zoe was her teacher, and she included her across the hall. She went to their kindergarten class as much as she could, so that was good. That was the first inclusion that we experienced. And then we moved. We ended up at that time in Lawrence, and then we moved to Alma, Kansas. I don't know if you know where that is, but it was real interesting because we lived in the country, and she was transported probably miles. She was on the bus for like an hour and a half each way as a little tiny girl. She did have a hair on the bus. And we did that for a year, and then I went to a families together conference. And that's another thing is I think it's important to have parents understand what their rights are, and teachers as well. I went to this conference, and the only thing I remember was they said, well, I guess I didn't explain that well. She went to Juanito. She went all the way to Juanito, which was that far away, where her brother went to school in Alma, because that's where she would go if she didn't have a disability. But they didn't have programs for her. So I heard at that conference, a child with a disability has the right to go to the school that they would go to if they didn't have a disability. And boy, did the lights go off in my brain. And so we, wasn't that hard. They knew that was the law. And so she went to second grade there. And that was the greatest experience of our lives with Angie being included. She had no special classroom. She was the only child there with a disability. And those little kids at second grade just embraced her, and us, we were nervous about how it was going to go. And all the little girls would come up and say, oh, can you guys spend the night with Angie? Or can Angie come here or there? And so that was a wonderful experience, and she was there until, I don't remember, she was there several years until we moved back to Hayes. So that whole time she was included because that's the way kids were. And then from now on, they've also blessed had all their kids with disabilities go. So Angie was kind of a trailblazer there. And then as far as being included here, you guys are way too young, and older ones are probably too young, but she was in a drama class with Mark was like that. Anyway, in junior high, they always have a drama and that year we didn't know quite what to do. So he wrote her play, it's called Looking in the Eye. And Angie, do you remember that? And Angie was Angie, and the big plate themselves, and it was amazing. It went all the way to the Capitol in Topeka for the state legislators. It was amazing. In Kansas City, they did this play for 700 people. It was incredible. So that was a neat inclusion. In high school, she was also in Andrea Zodi's class. Andrea Zodi started her out and walked her across the stage when she graduated from high school. But she was on the journalism staff here at Miss High, and she'd go take pictures out in the community. And she was also in the Met class, and they worked on scrapbooking. She took pictures with a computer, not when she was now in the Switch. So she was included there, all with other students. And now that she's an adult, it's a little more difficult, I would have to say. And it's probably not for lack of people wanting to, but funding. So if any of you want to make a difference, I would say that would be a cool way to do it. You could get involved in whatever you end up doing, helping adult services. She is included. She does custom creation. She does her computer, she does her artwork, and she makes all kinds of neat things with her art, and she sells them at custom creation.
I just wanted to say that I taught adaptive teaching I taught the district for 20 years. I taught adaptive teaching, and I wish I could start a program. I always had a couple of student assistants, but it would really be cool if you could have a class that you got credit for. And we could, if I had 10 kids in the class, we could have 10 regular ed students, one for each person. And we could do an inclusive activity really easy if we had that parent. I had great parents, and like I said, I had a couple student assistants every class, but I think it would have been a better situation. Oh, awesome. That's really good. Yeah, I didn't have that many. Anyway.
I just wanted to say that really inclusion is not all about the child with disability. It's about the rest of us. Because every day you're going to run into someone that has some kind of a special or special need. It might even be, you might end up having a child of your own. You to that. And God creates all of us equal and wants us all the way we are. And we can all just, be watchful for each other. I think that's important.
To speak on her intelligence, I know this for certain. One of her favorite stories you told me when when I first started helping or family working with programming Angie's eye gaze device was they were at Christmas and Hal was working on her brisket. Everybody was sitting around. Angie had her Toby at that time, and she had phonetically spelled brisket on her device. So,
She was hungry.
but knowing that, that just shows that she has all of those skills there that gives her an outlet for that. So, right, and now you
Mary. I'm Mary Claiborne. This is my husband Rick. Our son is Corbin. He'll be 21 in a couple of weeks. He's the youngest of 3 in our family. Corbin was diagnosed with autism just shortly before he turned 3, but we knew before his diagnosis. It took a long time to get him in for the diagnosis. We took him to Children's Mercy, and they literally have a 24-hour intake, and my phone call for his intake to figure out which doctor to go to was at 4:30 in the morning. So it took a long time for us to actually get the appointment and get the diagnosis. He started with Lindy Nathaniel with preschool. He was her first class as a preschool teacher. Can't say enough good about Lindy. From there, we went into elementary school. Our first school we went to, we didn't go quite the way we anticipated, so we switched schools. We went, and that was wonderful. They included him in everything as much as they could. In fact, when we were getting ready to switch, the kindergarten teacher told him to the Herman Clinic on campus for speech services, and the kindergarten teacher brought two of her kids from the classroom so they could watch his speech session, and so that Corbin would have familiar faces whenever he started the next week. From there, middle school, where we had Mrs. Boyd. She was wonderful. Corbin makes deep connections with people when given the opportunity. One of my favorite stories is they were working on state assessments, and Mrs. Boyd was very stressed out, and Corbin would not take instructions on what he was supposed to be doing, and he finally took her face in his hands and just stared at her and said, "Boyd, okay." And it just gave her a chance to take a breath and stop, and she said, just put everything in perspective. And we came to high school, and I was a nervous wreck. Didn't need to be. Mrs. David was his teacher, and the blessing. High school was very good for them. Again, included as much as he could be. I mean, there is the fact that they can't get included in anything. When Corbin was little, we couldn't take him places because he was so sensory sensitive. He would just completely melt down. He could not handle a lot of those situations. As he's gotten older, he's pretty good about any place we go. High school was so good for him. My favorite story is he was in a PE class, and there was, I think this was a weights class, and there was a PE class going on at the same time. And just a couple of the guys in the PE class just sort of adopted him. And he would go sit with them and wait until they knew what they were supposed to do. They kind of took him out on the basketball court and tried to help him play basketball. And none of that was prearranged. It just happened. High school graduation is probably my favorite memory. I'm trying not to get teary. He did not get to practice walking across the stage at 4 days because the building was not open the day before graduation. So Mrs. Dinkle kind of tried to explain everything to him before, and he got up there, started walking across the stage, and then just sort of stopped. And I think everybody sort of held their breath, and I don't know who it was in his class, but somebody in the class just very lightly started to clap, and the whole class just to kind of encourage him to keep walking, to keep going, and he finished walking across the stage, and that was a good one. That was,
Definitely my phone is Corbin's dad, so we're going to keep with that. One of the most interesting humans I've ever seen in my life was our son. And I just think it's a blessing all the way through. She's right, she said something, some things you cannot include in there, or at least not fully right away. We've been blessed with a lot of teachers who would take a minute step after a minute step to finally get something. So it wasn't something that you could just do and expect. It took a lot of people. It wasn't sitting over here. But we could not have handpicked the staff better on earth than the ones that lined up. When he got diagnosed, we came back from Children's Mercy, 40 men and 3 people in our front ambulance, setting them up for services in class. So it was crazy. We couldn't get that in a big city. We almost moved to Wichita to go to Hartsburg. Decided not to, but our service there would have been great, but it would have taken about a year and a half to get in. Here they just called and told me to help and kept our house. It was really good. Yeah, the weekend does a lot of stuff with him when we go to work at different places. He's got a lot of cool experience there. That led to him working in the custom fishing workshop. So he actually worked there this past summer after that, just to kind of, he's actually fairly capable of doing things like sanding and distressing furniture. He built something for her and someone in the house was surprised to it. That's amazing what he did with that thing. But he also worked with Harvest Days where they put together a greenhouse, did all the planting, did work, get the sun tape falling about them, and just kind of make sure everything was good. But we learned he working in 110-degree heat would have never entered. I would not have included him because I wouldn't have thought it would have worked. There's no way I thought he would have done what he did this last night. He came home dirty, hot, sweaty, stinks. Oh my gosh. It was just cool. It was a really neat work environment for him to get his hands dirty because I think a lot of times if we're trying to find something for him to do that's involving a scrape. There's nothing wrong with that over time, but that's what typically is the interface they get. They don't normally get dirt in a shovel. And that was really, really good experience for him.
Thank you so much. And Corbin was one I got to work with from itty bitty. So I was on his team initially, and I get to see him now when I go and work with weekend once a week. And it's a lot of fun to see him engage with me now, because I get to see all the growth. So his growth has been a lot of fun to watch as well. And I guess I didn't have a order. So.
No, we're going all this kid. We'll look to Natalie next.
Okay, my name is Sarah Meitner, and I live here in Hayes. We have 5 kids, and my youngest is Abe, and Abe has Down syndrome. He's 10. He's up there right in front of the rest of our family. He is a student over at Roosevelt, and he is in the STAR program there, so he's had Miss Wickers since the very beginning too. And just because Hayes is small and welcoming, I have to point out too that the Claiborne's, Corbin's older sister was also Abe's teacher in 1st grade. So the modeling of inclusion and how that can cycle through in lots of different unique ways is just pretty cool, because their daughter Allie is wonderful for Abe. So he is, like I said, he's in 4th grade. And when he was in kindergarten, COVID happened. So we had that 2020 where he lost the whole fourth 9 weeks. But when we came back to school, we had already planned for him to repeat kindergarten. I knew we wanted to do that and do it twice and just give him an extra time at the beginning. But we were faced with the choice, what they called and told us, we were faced with the choice of picking a cohort. So you guys remember at that time where it was like you had to stay with your group and you had to sit, far apart and all of that stuff. So they just said, we have to pick, is he going to be in the gen ed classroom or is he going to be in the STAR room most of the day, the whole day, because they had to stay in their cohorts. And they graciously said, we're picking the gen ed classroom for his where he was going to be 100% of the time. And it went great. So
So then we went into first grade, and they were like, I mean, the COVID restrictions had lifted, but they were like, we're just going to do it again. And he had Miss Reed, and it was wonderful. He was in there 100% of the time. He would get pulled out for, sometimes in the star room, they would do fun activities, like science experiments, or they do one called Author's Corner, and he loves that. So he would go do that. But second grade came, and we did the same thing. He stayed in his gen ed classroom. Third grade, same thing, until we kind of started seeing a little bit of a gap widen in math and reading. And gosh, those math classes, I don't know how you guys do math for an hour and 20 minutes or however long. He could last about 40 minutes, which I felt was good, and then he would start getting squirrely. So, but instead of going to the star room, we were going to the resource room and still trying to find ways to keep his gen ed minutes in place, but have as much inclusion as we can. And fourth grade has worked similar to that. And I couldn't be more grateful for the experiences that he's had, part of the school district, but just with teachers who are very welcoming and willing to sort of modify on the fly. Right? Have anything to add to you guys as future teachers, if you go into that, to be open to just trying it and seeing if it works. Because these kids, my son, and I know they would probably all say the same thing, he surprises me every day with the things that he's able to do or the things that he says that I go, wow, I didn't know he could do that. Whether he's using his device, because he uses a speech device as well, a lamp board, which I think a lot of our kids do, which has been wonderful for helping to encourage authentic relationships with his friends, and just help him to be as participatory in the class as possible. I don't want him to just be sitting in there for the sake of being sitting there. I want him to really be able to feel like he belongs. But I appreciate how they've, when we hit the part in math where they said, well, those basic addition, but now we need to start doing all the extra kinds of math. We're not gonna mess with that. We'll do a calculator. Things like that. Just little accommodations to make his experience even more fulfilling and worthwhile. When we have this annual IEP meeting, do you guys all know what an IEP meeting is? Okay. I start every meeting with every year we start with a vision statement. When he was maybe, one or two, I wrote this vision statement. And I don't know, Andrea's probably heard it before because she's been in there with me. Where I just kind of say what we hope for aid as an adult. And so looking at school as how we're going to get there. And his vision, I'll paraphrase because I don't have it by memory, so I usually bring it, but we want him to live where he wants to live, work where he wants to work, and have relationships with the people that he wants to have relationships with. And be happy, and there's some other stuff in there, be healthy. But, that's pretty basic, right? Isn't that what you all want? It's what we want for our other kids, too. And so, how do we get to that point is including them as much as possible along the way. I use, this is kind of maybe a random example, but I use Shakespeare as an example. I want him to be in an English class in high school where he is exposed to Shakespeare. Will he necessarily read Hamlet or Macbeth? I don't know. But I want him to at least know who Shakespeare is, maybe, because someday he might be sitting at a dinner table and overhear people mention Shakespeare. And he would know who that is, maybe, and be able to participate, even if he doesn't know all the details. I still want him to feel like he can participate. And so that's been the goal all along, at least my attitude toward how we sort of parent and, encourage him. We didn't know that he had Down syndrome when he was born. I didn't know during pregnancy. At first, found out or suspected, I guess. It took about a week and a half to kind of get the final results. And so you kind of mentioned this already too, but there's 20 of you here. And 1 out of every 7 kids will have a disability. So if we think that each of you, the average family size is about 2.5 kids, that means that 8, roughly, of your children will have a disability of some kind. It's going to look different. So it could look in any different sorts of ways, but I just want to point out that you will, whether you become a teacher or not, you will be touched by, you'll be lucky to be touched by the life of an individual with a disability. And just like they said, if that happens to not be you as a parent, maybe seek out ways that you can get involved or help or teach or things like that, because you'll find that it's just very fulfilling and worthwhile. But the other maybe thing that has to do with Abe and what we've done, when he was 2, I called the city parks department to ask if they could put up a swing in our community that he could swing on. He had gotten too big for the toddler swings, and we didn't have one in town at the time that he could swing on safely. We needed one with like a harness. And at the time, the city said, "Well, bring me a plan." And they should have just put a swing up, because then I would have gone away. But what ended up becoming, I don't know if you've been to the Arc Park, but the Arc Park came from that phone call. So that phone call was in the spring of 2017, and we debuted the Arc Park in September of 2021. So he'd gotten a little older in that time, but what I learned, that's how I met Natalie, and that's how I started meeting other kids in our community who wanted, and should have had all along an inclusive place to play. And so I'm really happy and proud that we have that here now. And what's come from that is I get phone calls weekly from communities across Kansas and outside of Kansas that want to know how they can build a similar park and how we do it and how they can do that in their community. And I feel like we've also exposed is maybe not the right word, revealed, showed our community just how many members of our kids or adults with disabilities there are, and by having an inclusive place to play like that. Okay.
Might be surprised what I have next.
Okay. Oh, it is here. Okay.
So speaking on Natalie, Karen McCall.
Well, first I want to say thank you for being here, and I want to say this before I forget. When I'm not being a special needs parent, I was the director of career services and helping Fort Hays students find jobs. Thank you for thinking about education. It is so important that we get amazing humans into the field of education, so it's exciting to be here and to talk to all of you. And when students come into my office and say they want to go into education, I want to hug them and say thank you. And so it's such a fulfilling career, and I wish I would have known about it before I had Natalie. I would do something more exciting than help people with resumes and find jobs and actually change lives. And thank you, teachers, for changing all of our children's lives and just being so impactful. I feel like, again, I don't do anything with my life extraordinary, but you guys do help families every day. So thank you from the McCullough family. Our daughter Natalie is going to be 15 next week. She is an 8th grader at Hays Middle School, and so watch out, Hays High. She's coming here next year, and so yes, Miss Jamie, we're excited for her to be here and to have fun at Hays High. We are a family of 4. Our son Elijah McCauley, you might have recognized him. He graduated from Hays High last year. He's at Fort Hays. But we did not know that Natalie, like many other parents, would have any sort of different pathway than our son Elijah had. And our story with Natalie is a little different, that not only does she have special needs, but she also has a myriad of health concerns. And so that's really, I can't not talk about inclusion without talking about Natalie's medical concerns, because that's really impacted her ability to be included, unfortunately. So within about 12 hours of Natalie's birth, on Thanksgiving of 2009, we were life-flighted to Children's Mercy, and didn't really know what the future was going to hold for Natalie. And in that 9-day visit, found out that she had a chromosome rearrangement, not Down syndrome. I honestly wish we would have had Down syndrome. We had trisomy 4P, which is super rare. It doesn't even have a name. There's about 150 people, we think, in the world that has Natalie's chromosome rearrangement. And so it was a really scary time as a parent,
because Children's Mercy could tell us pretty much nothing about her chromosome rearrangement and what the future would look like for Natalie. So, sorry, I'm probably going to tear up, but it was really hard and scary, but came back and got connected with all the services at the Hayes Area Children's Center. And those professionals were amazing, but we kind of knew right away that Natalie was going to have some pretty big hurdles that she was going to be jumping through in her life. When she was 2 years old, I found a Facebook group of other families and parents that had trisomy 4P, and that is the only connection with people that we have had with her same syndrome. They're all over the world. We did meet in Kansas City when she was about 4 or 5 and got to meet them, so that was exciting. But Natalie's first few years of life were just filled with medical concerns. We had 3 life flights from Hayes to Children's Mercy by the time she was 5 months old. She had been on a plane more as a 5-month-old than I had been as a 29-year-old. And that's not a great statistic you want your newborn child to have. Her 3rd life flight ended up with her getting a tracheostomy, a breathing tube in her neck that helped her breathe. We also found out she had chronic lung disease, she was aspirating, she has a vision disorder. Natalie probably has 20 medical diagnoses. On top of that, Miss Natalie is nonverbal, and she also has autism. She has pulmonary hypertension, all kinds of things. And so when Natalie, initially, she did not go out into our community because her health was very, very compromised. And so we couldn't put her at risk being around other people and getting sick. So she really grew up with nurses and college students that helped us take care of her because she needed 24/7 assistance as well. Natalie's kind of first inclusion started in Lindy McDaniel's preschool class, and Lindy was fabulous, but Natalie hadn't been around anyone other than her really immediate family. So she did not like school, she did not want to be included, she wanted to stay home and play with the 3 toys that she liked, and like others have said, Miss Lindy took minute changes and every day would challenge Natalie in a very tiny way that blew Natalie's life apart, but eventually Natalie ended up loving it, and while for the outside world it didn't look like Natalie was making any movement forward, she really was. And so that's the one thing I've learned from Natalie is to be patient, because I am not a very patient person by nature, to be flexible, to go with the flow, to celebrate the milestones and the tiny, tiny, tiny things that are miracles that I really hadn't thought of was a miracle. With our son Elijah, I was just like, okay, next milestone, next milestone. And with Natalie, it was like, okay, we didn't scream when we got on the school bus today. That's a huge, but now we can get the kid off the school bus. Like, she literally won't get off the school bus. She loves it so much. And she loves being included, and she loves school. And so, just echoing what everyone has said, 489 has been amazing. We had thought at one point we may need to move to Kansas City to help with Natalie's health and medical concerns, and then for special education. But everyone in Hayes has been incredible, willing to help Natalie. Teams of people have met to figure out how we can include her, to help her learn. Natalie, once she graduated from Lindy's preschool class, she went to Wilson before the STAR program, was at Roosevelt, and then transitioned to Roosevelt and had an amazing experience there. One of the things that when we were at Wilson to help her classmates understand Natalie and all of her different needs, they invited me to come in every year and do a little PowerPoint. And there's a great book that I would encourage all of you who are thinking of going into education to purchase it. And Lindy had shared it with me. It was Everyone Has Something. And it's a really great children's book educating our young kids that everybody has some type of disability. How many of y'all wear glasses? How many of you have headaches? Tummy troubles? Everybody has something. And this book is written by, I think, a mom from Kansas. And it was really great to share that with Natalie's classmates and to help kind of understand that we all struggle with some type of health concern or something. We just don't always think about it like that. So it was really great to share that with Natalie's classmates. She's been at Roosevelt. really Natalie being included opened up when the LAMP system was introduced to her and she was able to communicate. We knew Natalie had a lot going on, but she didn't have a way to express that, being nonverbal. Because Natalie had so many medical concerns early in that 5 months when she was struggling medically, we had several doctors that really encouraged us not to intervene with Natalie and not to do a tracheostomy. Because her chromosome rearrangement is so rare, they didn't think that Natalie may have any value or quality of life. And so that, thank you. So that was really hard. My husband and I felt like Natalie did have quality of life, and she had a pulmonologist at Children's Mercy who was a special needs mom as well. And that was the only doctor that was advocating for Natalie and saying, I do think your daughter has quality of life, and I think you should intervene, and I'm here to go through this road with you, and I will help you advocate as much as I can as a doctor. I also share that because when you are in life, you just never know what people have been through, right, and what challenges they're fighting through. And so sometimes I don't always have the most gracious response when I'm fighting for Natalie because we have so many roadblocks in our way and so many people telling us, like, it's not worth it, Natalie's not worth it, and so sometimes I get a little feisty. And so just forgive and try to walk in their footsteps if you can, and don't take it personally. Because anytime I know I've lashed it out at all of these ladies at some point and had a bad day, and I apologize. Because sometimes I just get a little grumpy because I want somebody to help me advocate for Natalie, and these ladies all have. But I know I have lashed out at you, so I apologize. But it's really sometimes the struggles that our families go through. A lot of it is hidden, unfortunately. But sessions like this really kind of help bring forth some of those challenges that our families have struggled with. And even again, medical professionals who think are advocating for all humans sometimes don't see it that way. And so we're bearing a lot. And then I won't even start talking about the insurance and all the things that we've dealt with Natalie because of 5 life flights and all of that. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic of inclusion. So Natalie is at Hayes Middle School. She is loving it. She started Special Olympics, which has been super great for Nat. She got to do bowling, and that has been fun. But the layup system has been amazing because Natalie now has a way to communicate with all of us. Before we knew she had a lot going on, but she didn't take to sign language as well as we had hoped. She had about 3 signs more. She loves to eat, so she would always sign more for more food. She loves food. And then she really wants to tell people she's all done all the time. So that was like the second sign we learned. So we'd always get more food and then I am all done. And usually we saw all done a lot. But Andrea started the LAMP system, when Natalie was maybe in the 1st or 2nd grade. And now she has hundreds of words and she doesn't stop talking. She's nonverbal, but she talks more than the rest of them call us, which is crazy because I talk a lot. But Natalie has something to say all the time, and we can't get her away from school. She loves being included with her classmates. Andrea's daughter, Collins, has been an amazing support system for Natalie. Going to the park. Natalie got included at a swim party with friends, and she loves her friends. She loves her friends so much that we have pictures printed of friends, and when Natalie's not in school, she just sits and looks at her pictures all day long because she loves being around her people, around all of her teachers, and so it's been really fabulous for Natalie to be included in 489. I tell people, like, next week Natalie will be the saddest kid in Ellis County when school closes for 3 days. And on Wednesday, she will take her book bag and she will sit by the window and wait for bus driver Joe to come and pick her up. And then we have to remind her we don't have school. And so it has been really fabulous. We also know that because of her medical concerns, there is a risk for her being at school. We had 2 life flights a couple of years ago because of viruses, and Natalie has some lung failure. But we also know that if we kept her at home, she would not have the quality of life that she wants to have. And so as parents, we are very aware of the risk that we have by having Natalie out in the community, and we wish we could do more. So we do try to kind of balance that in the winter, and when she isn't feeling well, she doesn't get out as much, but we definitely get her out in the summer. She loves swimming, she loves going to the art park, going to Bethesda, doing all of the things, and we want her to have a really high quality of life. And she, from starting Lindy's special education preschool where she didn't want to engage, she didn't want to go, to now we can't keep her out of school, I feel like we've had a lot of wins in her life, and we are super excited for her to come to Hayes High and see what the future holds. Thank you very much. Another kiddo that was super inspiring. Okay, we have Natalie Binder, hopefully this is here, talking about maybe a little further readings or pull out any boards.
Yeah, so Oliver's our 8-year-old. He was born with Down syndrome. We were not aware of the diagnosis at birth. We hadn't done any of the prenatal testing. And so it was kind of an initial shock for us. He was born with a transient leukemia, so he was flown out to Kansas City. He was there for about a month and a half before he actually made home the first time. So we didn't really know what the future was going to hold for us and everything. As Ollie started growing and getting older, more of his personality started coming out. Ollie's about one of the most outgoing kids that you'll ever meet. Quick story with him. Ollie's at Roosevelt in the SAR program in 2nd grade. So a lot of like Fort Hayes, Dr. PE and everything comes over and works with him. And so I work out at Bethesda as far as Argus Pacific Plains as a social enterprise. We started out there called Argus Hayes. And so we have a lot of these programs come out there. And so Drew Gannon, who teaches the adaptive PE class there at Fort Hayes, brought the class out. We were kind of talking and everything. Drew was like, no, tell the class who your son is, and was taken back by it. It was like, it's Ollie. And to see about 40 students light up, people that I've never met in my life that knew my son, just for going to meeting him was kind of a rad experience. As a parent, you don't realize, I guess let me reword that. Initially, as a parent, you don't realize how much people are going to affect your life and be a part of it. Educators and professionals that work with our children are as responsible for their growth as much as we are. We get them in the evenings and the weekends. Y'all get them more or less 9 to 5 throughout the week. And so to be able to see the growth and everything that our kids get from professionals is an amazing bit of inclusion. I mean, it really, our kids teach us more every day than we teach our kids, and it's really an eye-opener with it. I cannot emphasize how special of a career path y'all could possibly be choosing. Every day is different. I mean, I don't want to call other teachers out, but you go into math teaching every day, you know what you're going to be teaching. As a special ed teacher, every day is completely different. You have no idea what you're going to be seeing that day, and it's an adventure every day. And it's the same thing with us as parents. I mean, we wake up like, whoa, what's this going to bring? I don't know.
Yeah, it's been incredible to see the way that teachers change our kids' lives. Ollie will do things for teachers that I can't get him to do. He'll, there's a teacher at Roosevelt that our son he's 8 years old and he
he's still eating pureed-only foods. We don't know why. The doctors can't tell us why. There's really no reason. He's pretty stubborn. So we shared that with Tasha at his IEP, and she shared that with Hallie. And Hallie now has made that her mission to get him to eat, and she's gotten him to eat, I believe, a strawberry, a banana, a grilled cheese sandwich, like all of these things that if I put in front of him, he'll tell me no, but he'll do anything for Hallie. So it's pretty incredible how much he truly loves them all and how much they do for him every day.
Kindergarten classroom a lot too, right? Kindergarten, first grade a lot. Included in his kindergarten classroom a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So he was always included. He's always really been included in school. He gets along really well with the kids. The kids really like him. He's got a great sense of humor, and so the kids enjoy that. And he goes to after school care, which I think is pretty new for Roosevelt to have the special ed students be included in after school care. And he's included so much that he, gets to play tag, he gets to play basketball, he gets to do everything everyone else gets to do, but it maybe looks a little bit different, so.
Probably all gonna jump in. It's so funny because Abe started after school care because Ollie was doing it. And Abe was older, but they were, at the time, they were like, oh, but it was COVID too, so maybe that's part of it. But then it went so well for him, but then they were like, oh, okay. And then Isaac started, one of the other little guys, and you used the word trailblazing. And people have used that with us. I'm sure that used that with both of your children. But it's funny how here they are blazing trails at all different ages, in all different ways, over the years, continuing to do that, which is pretty cool to see. And then wanted to reiterate too that just how, at least for my little guy, and I think probably the same, he's motivated by, I'll add a fourth thing, but the teachers and the parents, and I joke that he'll do anything for a pretty girl, and he thinks everybody's pretty. So they can get him to do things, but also music and food and peer modeling. Peer modeling is probably the most important, but he wants to do what his peers are doing, and I think that's echoing like what we've all said, and why then it's even more critical for him to be around his peers, so that he can copy them and do what they're doing. So, yeah, just put that aside.
Okay, so that was all amazing stories, right? Every one of them, like I said, I tear up with all of them because all of their kids have a special place in my heart. And I don't think that they do anyone said it private. Those guys are private. Anyway, do any of you have any questions right now based on something else they said? Otherwise, I'm going to go through your guys' questions that you put in. I put them on here. Or did you have a question you saw that you wanted to answer for sure? Yeah. Oh, yes.
Well, listening over the talk, some of you may not be teachers or going to education at all, but if you become a lawyer, you can also practice that with that shirt on. You can have a law practice that keeps in mind how does this affect an entire population. You could be a doctor that does the same thing. You could be a lawyer. You could be a policeman. Whatever you want to do, you're going to run into them. And if we have never thought about or planned about or even open a possibility, failure is pretty strong in terms of that in my group or any of these guys. So I would just say that whatever it is you go into, just remember, those are beautiful kids and beautiful people, but sometimes they're a little bit more hidden and a little bit less obvious. But if you can affect a kid, what you did with that playground was freaking amazing. what you did with that, and how many people that touched. So you can do anything if you decide you want to do it in the right way.
Yes.
With regards to music, that's probably Ollie's biggest motivator, whether it's eating, like getting him to get dressed to go to school or something like that. He has an iPad at home that he pulls up YouTube videos, so a lot of Jack Hartman and stuff like that. But yeah, music's probably his biggest motivator.
Since food isn't a motivator for him, we can't say if you eat dinner, you get a sucker or a chocolate or whatever. It's, once you're finished, then you can listen to cookie or whatever. But music is huge in his life, and he'll find a way, even in the grocery store, things I don't notice, he'll hear the overhead music and you'll see him start hopping around, and then you realize, okay, yeah, he's heard this music before. And so music is really big in his life.
Just wanted to say that I think that's really cool you're going to do that. That's what you're inspired to do, and how important for Angie. Music was important from the very beginning. I remember being in a grocery store and she was just this little girl and she was crying and crying, and I always sang Jesus Loves Me. So I looked over and I'm like, singing Jesus Loves Me, and she was flower. and she, of course, she stopped, and she would just always stop crying and being upset whenever she heard music. And I thought that was interesting. I don't know where all people in the store got, but that's what they got. So.
With that, the music part too, it's also dance. Abe loves dancing. And conga lines. We can get him to go, time to get ready for bed, and he'll go, and I'll go, we'll do a conga line. And it could be him and me, and that's it in the conga line, but it'll get him in the mood. So include dance and as you think about how that can be used too. Yeah, it's huge for Natalie. We tell everybody who comes and works with her, just start singing, and they're like, no, I'm not going to. And we're like, she doesn't care. You're a superstar. You're like Britney Spears or whoever's popular right now. I don't even know. We don't listen to popular music, as you can tell. Britney Spears hasn't been popular in like 20 years, but whatever. She loves music, and so that's how we motivate her. She loves food, but we do food and music, and it calms her down, and so that's a really great career path, and I would encourage you in that. Anybody else? Yes.
I just want to say as a parent that I'm thankful for families who still put their children out there. It's not easy. I will speak as a parent, but Sophie's empathy for meeting it, like parents would let Sophie meet Natalie at the park. If the boiler was in our apartment and Sophie's like climbing up the ladder with Natalie and that. But my daughter's empathy, because she was still willing to let her daughter go to that, it has to be easy just to be like, oh, we're just gonna stay home. But putting your children out there, I think the church I go to, she went to church with them that play drums, and that does the men, and my daughter sees that when they interact with them, and they know that, and so my daughter doesn't get shocked when she sees children different than her, and adults different than her, because you put yourself out there, you included your children, you experience things, but you let my child see that, and you let my child build relationships with that, and as a mom, I can't think of anything more than my daughter being kind and seeing that, but all of you, I thank you for putting your children out there, because I think that's sensitive, and I'm maybe very looking away, and raw for you guys to do that, but as a mom, with my child, having those experiences, I thank you.
I can definitely echo that. You have something to add to that?
When we took Angie to that little town in Alma, of course we were nervous about it. And I remember how parents meeting, they came up to me and said, "Thank you so much for letting Angie come to school here." And we were so worried, that it would be in other ways so small school. So thank you for saying that. I like that too.
I was just gonna say that one time in Alma, when a girl came up and asked if they could have a slumber party at Angie's. And they're about, what, 5 or 6 old, something like that. she loves music. She has her own music page on her television. She's not afraid to start playing that music anytime, anywhere. And she waits until everybody gets into the song and she'll abruptly change the song. And she loves to turn the volume up. So you go and turn it down, and she'll turn it right back up. She has a very good sense of humor.
One time when her brother was here, by the way, that picture up there, I forgot to tell you that. Our son, had graduated from the Air Force Academy and had just graduated, and the next day, was Angie's prom, and he had asked her to prom. That was really cool. That was a tearjerker. That was a really neat experience, so, yeah, yeah,
Well, we used to promote some concerts up at the fairgrounds, and we got to know a bunch of them, and mostly in the Texas fairgrounds. We got to know how many months that is. But she got acquainted with some of these artists, and they're really pretty big now. There's ones like Coast to Coast, and played Red Rocks, and places like that. So he put out a benefit for Rett syndrome, and it was a big hit. But she gets to make those kinds of relationships. Has been very fortunate to meet a lot of people that probably, if she hadn't had a disability, not never met them.
Just going to add something to your point. There's studies that have been done about the impact of inclusion for non-disabled kids and what that ultimately leads to. And there's clear data that shows that test scores go up, the likelihood of graduation rates go up, but also the more likelihood that they'll go into compassion career fields, whether that's teaching or police or social work or counseling or whatever that looks like. But we need people to go into those fields, and there's direct data to show how inclusion can help lead to that, which I think is a really cool part to that too.
I'll just kind of share. My husband and I grew up in small towns who don't have a lot of, diversity, and so a few times we have been brave and taken Natalie out to the county fair or whatnot. And I will say the reaction from people in our hometowns has not been amazing. And we have experienced, people looking at Natalie, making comments, children coming up to me saying, what is wrong with her? Why is she different? And so those are some things that we really don't take her out because it is kind of, and that's a nice thing. Natalie doesn't know. It hurts me as a parent more. Sorry, I can't believe I'm here yet. It hurts me as a parent more because I know, but she could care less. That's kind of the nice thing is Natalie's like her own little diva, and she's like, whatever, I don't care. I got plenty of friends. But it is hard for me to see that in some of our small towns in Kansas, they haven't had the experiences of inclusion and having, some of them maybe, and Natalie is more significantly, her needs are more significant, and so that has been something, so thank you, Jennifer, that has been something that we've really dealt with our family. I will say our son, growing up with Natalie, I can see as him being an 18, 19-year-old, he's definitely more compassionate and empathetic. I work out on the college campus, and so just because he's grown up with Natalie and grown up so much differently, he sees the world so different than a lot of the other college students that I interact with. And not that I just wish more people could have these experiences. And so that's why I love Hayes and I love our community, because I know when I take Natalie out places that 99% of the time people are going to be open and welcoming and encouraging, and we really don't run into that problem in Hayes. And so that's why I love this place.
I did have somebody, when we were first launching the concept of the art park, we walked in the parade. I think Natalie walked in the parade with one of them. We did the homecoming parades and stuff, and I had a gentleman come up to me afterward and he goes, where did you find all these kids? And I was like, they're here. They're here, you just haven't seen them. And because it is sometimes difficult when facilities aren't accessible to enter, and I in the other day, and I walked into a business and went, this isn't accessible. Or, safe places to play and things like that. The community forgets that they're there, or may forget that they're there. So we need opportunities for inclusion so that we can continue spreading how awesome our kids are.
I would definitely echo that. It is definitely brave of you guys to go. When you have to do that, you have that fear of how many people would react. But I do feel like our community has, because of some of the things that we do, I think Hayes has opened up a lot more. The adult programs we have, the custom creations, just the ARC in general. Like I think most people bring their stuff to the ARC now because they associate with the ARC part really. So that's echoing what they're saying is part of that. Like not just if you're thinking of being a teacher, but being an advocate for people when that's a key thing too. If you hear or see somebody saying those things, that it's important to be able to advocate for other students and kids your age. Anybody have anything else?
As someone who wants to go into nursing and healthcare, I never really thought about the social side of it and being able to work with those kids, but this year working with your tutors, I do have sparked a bigger interest in that. I'm specializing in that. But I would ask, what's one thing that maybe a healthcare worker did that really impacted you, or you wish someone would have done?
Because Natalie's journey has included so much medical pieces, we're kind of in both of those worlds, and so I think that's amazing because it's so important for healthcare workers to understand that not everyone is going to experience healthcare the same way. And so, 90% of the medical workers that we have been involved with definitely have been very kind and compassionate and, willing to, because Natalie has been around medical providers her whole life, she's very cautious and doesn't love medical providers. A great example is her grandma is a nurse, and grandma and grandpa moved to Hayes when Natalie was born to help us because we just needed so much help because it takes a village to raise Natalie McCullough. But she loves grandma, and everybody who knows Natalie knows that Grandma Karen is Natalie's favorite human in the whole world. But grandma's a nurse, but Natalie didn't know that. So one year we were inpatient at Hayes Med, and grandma was working, and grandma came to Natalie's room in her scrubs. And that signalized a healthcare worker to Natalie. Natalie would not go to Grandma Karen in her scrubs, which is shocking because Natalie loves her grandma. Part of Natalie's autism is focusing on grandma, and so that's how much Natalie does not like healthcare workers. Is that she would even go to her favorite human when she saw her in scrubs, and so grandma was like taken back, like, why won't Natalie go to me? But so we have to be really thoughtful if we're going to give Natalie a shot, if we're going to give her medicine, if we're going to do a procedure. And 99% of healthcare workers are amazing and understand that. But I have had a couple of situations where people haven't been kind or empathetic, and it has been really, really hard. We had a sleep study at Children's Mercy when Natalie was about 3, and because of Natalie's tracheostomy, she ended up sleeping with us because Natalie didn't like her trach, so she would rip it out, which is not amazing. It's kind of a medical emergency when you take out your trach. So she could breathe with her normal airway, praise the Lord, but it was just annoying to get it back in, and so we would sleep with her, so she didn't pull it out at night. But at Children's Mercy, you have to sleep independently to have a sleep study, and the sleep tech would not let me intervene, would not let me put Natalie to sleep. I would try to put her to sleep, lay her down, and then she would cry. So I would anyway, he ended up kicking me out of the room, and he tried to put her to sleep. And it was awful and traumatic, and like one of the top 3 worst experiences in my life. And I don't know that he understood or really kind of thought about like her special needs, how our life with her was so different, and we were sleeping with her. And so I think just recognizing that, the strategies that I work with this child may not work with this kid. And just, being a parent, knowing every children has different personalities and things, sometimes you have to be critically thinking and problem solving, and those are skills that employers are looking for. And I tell college students, that is how I up my game in critical thinking and problem solving, is having children, because you got to stay on top of them. And so those are great skills to have for any profession, and just recognizing that, yeah, for probably 90% of kids, I can do this and this and this, but I gotta get creative. What do they like? I think also talking to parents and recognizing that they are they're the expert in their child, what works for them, how partnering with them. And so, we're always looking for people to help us with Natalie, because we hire a lot of people, so if anybody wants to come over and help us with Natalie McCullough, we do pay. It's not a great rate, but, we encourage students to come over and work with Natalie. And a lot of the college students that we hire are either interested in going into special education or nursing or rad tech, and we found that students who are kind of more innately interested in those career paths work really well with Natalie. But just, spending time working with her is great. And I know that Natalie is different than Abe and is different than Corbin. So if you came and worked in our homes, you would learn so many different skill sets. It would be really amazing. The only other thing I'll add is when we look at their ages, and I just encountered this with a woman last week, and she was talking about her son who's 47 who has Down syndrome, and he is encountering some macular degeneration. And what we're learning, and as far as our kids are living longer than they used to, and so there's, I think, opportunities in the health field to be open to what used to be isn't always the case, and to looking at new research. And I wish that there was more money going toward research and different for different diagnoses and what that looks like in adulthood or in the later years, because I there's still just a lot that we don't know. And I think it's really going back to the trailblazing thing. We are on the cusp of new developments and new treatments, I think, that will help them to continue to live longer. And it's interesting to see that side of it also.
With regards to Ollie, medical's it's a nightmare every single time. Even though his leukemia was transient and went away, he still has to get blood draws on a regular basis. And it's to the point that we can get him to walk to at least the doors of the building now, but it's pretty much once we hit that point, it's screaming bloody murder the rest of the way. I cannot emphasize enough that as far as like every child is going to be different, and every circumstance has to be handled differently. There's I guess we should be a nurse. There's a lady that's there now that is the first one we've had just about ever. That when we go in to get all his blood drawn, I pretty much Natalie will walk into the room with the nurse and get everything set. I have to carry him in there, sit down, hold him in my lap, and hold him as tight as I can while Natalie holds his arm so that the nurse can do it. It's not the way that it's done every single time, but this nurse has made it such as pleasurable of an experience as it could possibly be, because of her understanding that every situation is different.
And she understands what works for us because we verbalize that with her. So I think out of anything that we could offer you as far as advice, I would say maybe just slow down a little bit and talk with the parents who do want the children the best. And sometimes the best thing we can do is just listen.
Some great questions, and we're kind of covering a lot of the questions that have been asked here in the talk. But does anybody have another on you?
I don't necessarily know what I like this, but so I don't really walk a lot for like the after school thing, and I see things too like, okay, people like I'm at school, but it's not we're not doing like school things necessarily. So I was just like wondering how do you make it I don't know, more like
Structure
yeah.
and involved.
Yeah.
how to make them feel more comfortable in like in a setting that they might not be as sure of. Yeah.
You have to come up with what seems to help if you're not as sure of something.
Peer modeling. You say it too, but peer model. I mean, like set up get other groups going so that then if you have a child who or a student there who needs a little bit of extra care, create opportunities for him or her to go and join in with another group. Or I feel like kind of going back to how I've been able to do anything for a pretty girl, he will also for a few of his friends. And so maybe finding other kids who might take the lead on that and really empower them to also take the lead on saying, hey, come on, let's go do this. And I feel like that has been the most critical for aid in those settings. Yeah, I would agree. I think for Natalie, she has some go-tos that she loves to do no matter where she's at. And so Natalie loves to play tag. So like getting people together to play tag or listen to music. Or she has some phrases. She can be a little bit repetitive, which I believe is part of her autism. And so when we take her places, she might ask people 17 times, question, what did you have for lunch today? And you keep answering her question, and then you get more people involved, and her stuffed animals answer questions, and Mrs. Wickers answers the question even if she's not there. We'll say, what did Mrs. Wickers have for lunch today? Because Mrs. Wickers is on Natalie's device. And so we try to pattern some things that she's really familiar with and comfortable with in places where maybe she doesn't know the expectation. We also try to really talk to her, especially like around medical situations. And Natalie's blood draws are the same. Like literally, we have to tie her down, and we can't go to medical things without my husband holding her down. And as she's getting bigger, it's getting a lot harder. We have to lift weights to try to stay on top of Natalie McCullough. But we really try to talk to her like, no ouchies today, no blood draws. We're just going to go in, we're going to play tag with the nurse. She's going to listen to your heart. Your arm's going to get a hug. We just try to be really encouraging and supportive and try to remind her that nothing's going to happen to her. This is a safe environment. Again, we might talk about people that maybe aren't there, but that she recognizes and she is interested in to help her feel comfortable and to kind of get engaged with other people.
Yeah, I definitely echo what they're saying. As a person who provides support, sometimes like having visual schedules, or even just talking through this stuff. So sometimes you can't make a visual picture, but you could just say, first we're going to do this, then this and this. So they know what to expect, because a lot of times we don't know what, they may be getting upset or having, kind of a meltdown, maybe what it would look like to us. And it just means they might not understand what was happening. And even if you can write it down, I've done that with Corbin. If I didn't have something that we were going to do in our speech session, I just wrote it in there. Because he could read it and he knew, and then it's on paper, so it makes sense. Okay, that's happening because it's written down. So sometimes that can be something that's just like us. Sometimes, it's nice to have that structure, and so that having those pieces written down. Another question, anybody? Great, yes.
Super side note, you were talking about your son going to prom with your daughter, and I went to prom with your son in high school.
Look at that. That's right.
I remember being you, I didn't know her obviously, but I went to high school when you were a teacher.
Right.
And so I just remember her and that was really
brother, I don't know if I took that picture, it's in my mind, but I wish I could. But anyway, that was a Ghostbusters. Also, the next Monday, all the girls were like, who is that cute guy that Dimensions is with? Any other questions?
I was trying to think of, just in my mind, I think we kind of covered a lot. Did any of the questions I sent you, you know, the chance to look at them that we didn't answer, were some of them something that stuck out to you? Yeah?
Here I talk about how I want Abe to be as included as possible, but there is one way that I have resisted. And something that, you know, we talk about how there's always anxiety. I'm very worried about what junior high is going to look like. Very worried about what high school is going to look like. You know, all of those next stages. But there's also an added fear and an added layer for parents of kids with disabilities and keeping them safe. And statistically, 1 in 2, so 50% of a child with an intellectual disability will be a victim of a sexual assault. And that keeps me up at night. And so Abe doesn't use the gen ed bathrooms at school. He uses a private bathroom because the parents don't go in with him anymore. I wouldn't expect them to, but I don't want him to be put at risk, even among his peers who I know like him. I don't know if somebody will have a cell phone in there, or if he doesn't know to not come out of the stall with his pants down around his ankles. But then I'm very aware of that, also looking at how he will continue to build relationships as he gets older. I'd love for him to have a sleepover, but I can't allow that at this point. He couldn't articulate to me if he was hurt or touched or anything like that, and I wouldn't want to put him at risk. So there are still ways where I've kept barriers up, where even though I'll say I want full inclusion, there's still areas that I can't. And those are fears that I think all parents carry, but I think it's heightened for us, and I don't feel like it's generally articulated. And, you know, it's something to just be aware of. So.
Anything else that you put down in questions? I feel like we covered a lot of those as I read through them, and they were great. I wanted to see if we could do a group picture christening, and then we have some muffins and juice, and that weekend crew made for us. So they were super proud, blazing in here with their muffins. And so we want them to do that, but then you can ask questions as well if you want to, like, kind of mingle in with the parents. If you wanted to ask an individual question to one of the parents, I'm sure you all would be open to that. Okay. All right. So.
All the students or anybody who wants to take a picture, just go stand. We could put like a row in front of them and a row behind them.
Okay.
We could move the mic or the
Yep.
speaker out of there.
Okay. We're just going to take directions from Chrissy because she knows how to do all this.
If the parents just sit where you're at, and we'll put some students in front and behind you. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if you in the front sit, and then students in the back stay. That would work. Students want to I think it tastes what's. I don't know.